All right, this was Mark's tweet earlier this year, and for some reason we find ourselves talking about starting a podcast. No
Finn,
intro, no nothing.
we will always find ourselves together.
Somehow,
Eventually, we always come back around.
somehow.
So how you
And
been?
ah, it's been a while, right?
I know. So that's what I thought about. It could be kind of fun to connect with you because on something like this, I don't know whether it be a video or podcast or something like that, because it's two. I
We may
think
have
the
to
ones that I listen to are usually hosts that like never see each other or talk to each other unless they're on the podcast. Remember how I like to just listen to podcasts mostly if I can hear myself? That was what we did in the good old days.
only if you're on it. You listen to the podcast when you're on it.
So I thought it'd be good if like we only talk to each other if we're on a podcast. So then it'd be something to talk about.
So there's literally I'm confused now because I'm looking at it. It didn't look like we were online. I have no idea where we're online. I just hooked this up and I said stream to YouTube, stream to Twitter, stream to Facebook. So I literally have no idea what's going on. Okay. So we're online someplace, but I don't know where. So good luck with that.
Did you tweet it out? Did you use the Twitters and
I
send it out there?
Tweeted that I was in a space, and since I've never been on a space before or done anything with spaces ever,
I still haven't seen the space. Where's the space that I was supposed to be on?
Well, so that's the thing, and we need to talk about that, don't we? Because you're not going to be on a space because you won't install the Twitter app.
No,
on your phone for some reason.
I don't have any social media apps on my phone. I use an Android phone. I switched over to that probably about over a year ago, which I would switch over to the Samsung Fan Edition, the FE.
Okay.
FE20.
Okay.
You know? And I was like, I've been in love with it. It's like I've been an iPhone user since the first iPhone, and I've kind of played with Android a little bit, especially if I had like an Android project or I was doing some development on. I always had like an Android phone around, but I made the switch, never went back. And along with that switch, I just decided I'm not going to just run any social media apps on my phone, just because of the attention issue of like,
right.
It just feels like I gotta like also the privacy, because they know they're tracking you, even though they say like you're not sharing your location or something. I don't trust that. You know, there's always something or tracking the communication between the apps behind the scenes. There's some because they know what other apps you use.
Oh yeah.
And so I don't know. It actually has been good. I still use
it. Not just on mobile. I mean, that's on your web browser too.
The biggest time suck for me is I was using like Instagram a lot.
Okay.
Like I'd just be like one of those mindful like or mindless like scrolling through it.
Just scroll, see whatever's on.
And it's just like, oh my gosh, such like a waste of time. So like I still, I primarily use Twitter, a little bit of Instagram stuff, but I use them all through the Brave browser on my Android phone.
Okay. What do you think about Brave? Because I know people that use Brave.
I love, you know what? I've earned $10 by using Brave. Brave has paid me to use its browser.
Why?
You know about this? Because they have their own Ethereum token called the BAT, the BAT. So what they do is you occasionally see advertisements. Like when you first open up the browser, you'll have like mostly like crypto advertisements or something like that. Or if you're using on the mobile phone, you get a little like kind of pop up, little slide up thing that happens every now and then. It's not too annoying, but you actually are getting paid. So if you go, if I could share my screen, but I don't know about doing this right. But if I actually go,
I don't know if you open
the browser,
look at that. I don't know.
Yeah, we won't worry about that.
Yeah.
But when you first open the browser, you'll see how much you've earned. So like how many minutes you're on the browser, and it kind of keeps track of how many ads it showed you, and then you earn like tokens, or they're crypto tokens for it. And you could like each token right now it's worth probably about, I think it's like 75 cents. So I checked out my total. I checked out my crypto wallet where it goes. I've earned like over $10.
Nice.
So hey, there you go. And if this token goes to $10, hey, I've earned $100, right?
So we should probably talk about why we're doing this, and that's because you want to start a podcast, and
I want to start a podcast with you, Tim. There's nobody else that I want to start a podcast with. It's only you.
All right, so there's that.
It's only you.
And instead of figuring this out, not while being live, we might as well figure it out while being live and just doing it this way. I think we have a sum total of viewers across all of our platforms of none.
There you go. That's a good place to start.
There's that. Oh no, it looks like there's one eyeball on Facebook. Hello, whoever's watching on Facebook.
Well, it's
please
always
leave a comment because I don't know who you are or where I don't even know where it is on Facebook. So if someone could comment and mention me, then I'll find this post that apparently has a live video.
Well, it's always fun if you ever gone back to like a podcast or a show on YouTube that you watched that has like, I don't know, 1,000 episodes or whatever, and you go back and watch the first episode.
Oh, to see
it's crazy
how bad it is,
how horrible it is.
Well, we're starting out pretty good though, I think, from a technical standpoint.
No, this is bad. This is garbage.
Okay,
yes.
Right. Only
the whole point. You start low, right? You start low and then work your way up, right? And so it gives us something to look back on and say, "Wow, we have come so far." So when we on the M&T podcast, which sounds like a bank,
I think it's only because it is a bank.
We'll look back. We're on like the 300th episode.
This is the worst financial advice podcast ever. I bought all the Bitcoin with the Brave browser that he said to buy.
Hey, I could talk about crypto a lot. I know.
Maybe we'll get into that. Okay, so but you want to do a podcast. You want to do a tech-focused podcast.
Well, okay, let's go back to the Lehigh Valley Tech days, the Lehigh Valley Tech radio days, right?
Okay.
Those were good times, right? We kind of had more of a general tech show, right? We kind of had, my pattern was usually to go into Hacker News and see what was the most common or most kind of popular things to talk about and have a couple, tech things to talk about. We had Anthony Durante, a good friend from Lehigh Valley Tech.
Wayne will be upset if you don't also mention Wayne.
Wayne,
how many
yes,
times he was
on
the show.
Yeah, probably yes. And so we had people from the Lehigh Valley Tech community, right? So we had a lot of guests on, other people who were starting companies, running companies, just other developers, and it was a good experience. The part that I enjoyed most about that show was talking really heavy tech stuff, as in like we were talking about what we were working on, programming, APIs, technology that we're working on, hardware, like really kind of heavy duty tech stuff. That was the thing I found most interesting. And so the thing about myself, and I'm going to talk over you a lot today.
Is that how
because I'm a teacher. That's what I do. I just talk. I don't listen. Where I thought about what you do, we could get in because I haven't heard about what you've been working on.
You have no idea what I do.
I have no idea at all. But I'm a front end guy, right?
Yep.
I'm a front end guy. I teach that.
I used to do PHP, but yeah.
I do, but I'm full time React. I love React.
Really?
React with Gatsby. It just feels good to me. I know it's not perfect and it definitely has its issues and whatever, but I love doing React Native, love doing React. I love Gatsby, which is another framework on top of React for doing static websites. So that's kind of where I do like my side projects. I've been doing a lot of that. But thinking about you're a backend guy. You're an API guy, right? You are the API guy.
I was at one point. Yeah.
You are just. Do you still have that handle? Did you have a Twitter handle, the API guy?
No, I did. I think it was part of my Twitter bio. I wasn't ever the API guy. But
so you're the API. So I thought, okay, if I want to do this podcast with Tim, I want to have it be a developer-focused podcast. What's better not than having a front-end guy and a back-end guy coming together?
So together we're a full
talking
stack.
About the issues, right? From different approaches, different perspectives, right? Different technology.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And so I don't know. That was kind of the premise of it, because I like I said that we kind of like keep up. And plus, like I said, we don't talk to each other.
We don't. Yeah.
So yeah, we could
not
meet
because
once
we
a week.
don't like each other, but
Oh, I love you, Tim. You're my bro. You're my brother from another mother. So like, yeah, it's like, but we always get along. We may disagree, but we do it in a nice way. And yeah, I think we've got a fun.
Which probably today is something that doesn't happen a whole lot of times, right? So
what?
People disagreeing in a nice way.
Oh, that's true. I know.
That's fallen out of fashion.
That's a real good point. And also to be an opportunity to put something positive in the world. You're right. Really dark times, people just being upset at each other, social media driving each other crazy and making each other hate each other. Yeah, it's just do something positive.
So there we are, 10 minutes in. We have nothing more to talk about.
What?
And that's why this is the first. No, I just.
All right. So what have you been?
We don't have
your job. You used to be the freelance, elance.
Used to be the mercenary developer. Yeah. Once upon a time,
developer making bank.
I was the guy
per hour.
That Odesk would put in front of any. I shouldn't say it that way. That sounds far too self-promoting. They would frequently push media people towards me to ask about my experience on Odesk. But Odesk was bought by was it Elance? And now it's Odesk was acquired by Elance, and now it's Upwork. And
Upwork, yeah.
I'm not as thrilled with the system as a whole, for sure, and I don't even really use it anymore. I don't do any contracting through them. I have for the most part, it's a very trying to think how best to say it. I'm still a contract developer, but one company has bought much of my time. So
what do you mean bought your time? As in, like, have you on like a long-term contract?
Yeah,
or?
yeah. It's a monthly contract. So
Okay.
I have a significant client that is
it still in the healthcare space? Wasn't this something you were doing with the healthcare company?
So yeah, I went from being a contract developer. I spent 5 years at Nexmo. We can probably talk about that at some point. 5 years at Nexmo as a developer evangelist.
Yes, I know about that. Yep.
And then from there left that right after Vonage bought it, and that was really interesting. Because I know, like, you know, when we started wtih a century ago, actually it's more like a decade, but it feels like a century ago. I know you were really interested in startups, and
that's the reason why I started it.
Wanted to be in a startup. So it was interesting for me because at Nexmo, I was still a contractor.
Now I hate startups.
Yeah, I was still a contractor, but I think the fourth or fifth person that they hired. So I got to see this company go from 5 people, or technically 4 people and a contractor, to when I left. When I left, Vonage had bought them. So I left like 3 or 4 months after Vonage bought them. So I saw that whole transition, which was really interesting to me. But I was at Nexmo as their first and only developer evangelist for about 4 years, until we actually put together a actual dev relations team. And then from that, though, I left Nexmo to go join a startup in the healthcare space. We were replacing answering service providers, which was actually one of the impetuses. One of the things I touched on when I did my TedX talk in the Valley, on how basically, you know, my job, and it's the truth for a lot of people that work in technology, is
I like how you dropped it. Like, oh, I did a TEDx talk.
Well, I mean, it's just a TEDx talk. It's not like a TED talk. It's just.
But you can't see it on YouTube, right?
You can't. But they did. All right. So let's just. You know, now you're going to distract me. This is
my
why
job,
this is why we don't have a topic list, because it doesn't matter. We're not going to get to them anyway. So yeah, but like if you watch the TEDx video of me on YouTube, it's nothing for the first 2 minutes and like 8 seconds, or I don't know how long it is. It's like I'm telling you, black space silence. And they even got the title of the talk wrong.
Oh, well, so maybe I can't remember. I watched. Maybe I just fast forwarded to.
Probably because anytime I share the link, I share it with the time code, so you can go to where I actually.
Oh, maybe that's what you did for me when you sent it me. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I know you. You're not gonna sit through 10 seconds, let alone 2 minutes of nothing.
If it was for you, Tim, I'd sit through 10 minutes.
So anyway, that was one of the things that I talked about, was this idea that as someone who works in technology, a big part of my job is taking other people's jobs and basically making them not needed anymore.
Yeah.
You know, so we come at this startup, this healthcare.
You are an automator.
Yeah. We said, you know what? It doesn't make sense to have people answering the phones, taking a message, calling the doctor, giving it to him. Why don't we just record the message and then put it, send it in a mobile app, send it in an SMS, say, hey, you have a new message, listen to it here. And so we built that. I had built that for years with this client as a client, and it was after I was at Nexmo, like I said, for 5 years, that I decided, okay, time to go all in on the startup. They had got some funding, so they were ready to put the team together. They were able to hire me, hire a front end dev, hire some marketing. There was someone running it because the founder was a doctor, and he was not going to not be a doctor, right? So we had someone to run it on the executive side of things.
It's going to still be pumping money in the company. Need a job.
Something like that, right? So we had some investors. We had some runway. So I decided to do that. About, I want to say, a little bit more than a year in, we ran out of runway. And the truth is, it's really, like, healthcare is a hard thing to break into, because the sales cycle is enterprise. Everywhere. If you're trying to sell to hospitals, it's enterprise. And if you're trying to sell to small practices, you have to involve doctors, who generally are the owners of their small practices. And doctors may be great at medicine. They're really hard, apparently, to sell to, is what we found. Very difficult.
I don't know if they're hard to sell to than restaurant owners.
Hell, we can talk about that, can't we?
Because breaking into the online restaurant ordering space is pretty difficult, I found myself.
Yeah, that was your startup story.
Which we talked a lot about in our previous podcast at wtih, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to relive those days. But
I don't think you want to relive those days when you talked about it in that podcast.
The Genie days, yeah, which is interesting. Yeah, it's almost like you look back at your time, especially when you have that startup experience for, let's say, 6 months or a year, 2 years, however long you're there for. And it's like, I loved it in a sense where I loved the project. I love working on it. I love the technology. I like actually being
innovating and doing
trying to solve problems and be creative with it. And then also having a team, that you can either work with other designers or people you're working with, brought in other contract developers to work with. I thought I had some good experiences with that. But then the business side, the partners, the business side, how to grow the company, how to, kind of get it to the next level. That's where the frustrations happen. That you talk about running out of money, and then you try to balance, especially if you go full time on it for, let's say, 6 months to a year, and then they start to run out of money, and then you feel, okay, now I need to get a job again, bring the work. Now I'm trying to balance my time between bringing contract work outside of the company with the company, the startup, and it just is, that part. Don't look back on fondly. So
yeah, for sure.
Then you end up just becoming a teacher, and whatever. Kind of end there.
But then it's over with.
Then your life ends.
No. Yeah.
Well, becoming a tenant. Yeah, it's been, which I like teaching. I've always liked teaching. I was always doing that for, teaching at a college level since I think when I graduated from college, then probably about after within like 7-8 years, then I always just started teaching as an adjunct, and then it led me to being full-time tenured. But I don't think I'm going to be doing it for the rest of my life. I do have a goal of, a certain period of time, I'm probably going to transition to the next thing. But yeah, I've also enjoyed that too. Because I like to learn. And the one thing about being a teacher is that you get paid to learn. So I like that.
Yeah. Well, the good teachers do, right? The good teachers continue to learn. Right?
Well, it's that thing. I torture myself because what I do is talk to my wife about this, who's also a college professor and other faculty. We're I redo my curriculum or my content almost every year, which means I don't really reuse videos that much. I don't really reuse a lot of the content I've written or assignments. I changed up just because I can't. It's boring to me if I don't do that. But the problem is I'm making more work for myself. I know that it's an endless, brutal cycle that I put myself into, where I feel like I got to make my classes harder for myself, so it makes me more engaged. Because if it's easy, then I'm like, I'll just coast by it, which I know a lot of teachers do.
Yeah, I mean, and so coming from, I'm not a teacher, right? But coming from my similar experience, like when I'm doing conference talks, it is easy. I don't want to say easy. It's easy to kind of fall in a rut in some things, and you can do a good job of it, right? Like if the material is relevant still, you can just dust it off and give the talk again. But if that was every day, like from a teaching standpoint, that'd get boring so fast. If you kept doing your TED Talk, and you just did it that would be so boring.
Nationally, internationally.
It'd be so boring. So boring. So very boring. So
some people try to make a career of that.
Oh yeah. I mean, but I think they try to change it up. I'm hoping they try to change it up. I mean, but yeah, you can do some of the same talks, but I feel like and especially in the technology space, right? Like there's plenty of talks that I've given that I could not give today because things have changed too much.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be relevant. I would be, specifically from a developer standpoint, right? Specifically around tooling.
Yeah. So what space is the company that's paying you on a contract basis?
Right. So I can say they are. I work for PhoneBurner. They're one of my main clients. PhoneBurner.
I use that. Is that like an app? Is that the app where you can just sign up and you get a new number whenever you want to?
No, that sounds like something that scammers would love.
No. It sounds. It's like well, do you have an app? Is it like a iOS or Android app?
No, I mean, we may have something like an app. I don't think we have one for PhoneBurner in there.
PhoneBurner.com?
Yep, PhoneBurner.com. So PhoneBurner.com is a sales platform.
Okay, yeah, I just
for sales enablement, small to medium sales teams. So if you, say on a Monday, have to touch base with a bunch of people that are your, say you're maybe your real estate, maybe you're an account manager, and it's like, okay, Monday I got to touch base with all of my accounts for this month. Just to give them a call, make sure everything's going good. That can be tedious to load it up, dial it in your phone, and find the person, right? So we make it easy with our contact manager to bring up all those contacts, say these are people you need to call, you dial into our system, and then we will pop up, okay, this is Bob. Here's all your information about Bob, and hit a button, we'll start dialing Bob. And then when you're done with Bob, we say, How'd it go? And you can click some buttons to categorize how that call went, and then we're talking to the next person. We're talking to Alice.
So why the burner name? Because I know that implies like, burner phones.
Because
right?
why did they pick that name?
Yeah.
Because it's so fast. Because the big thing, because you're going to burn through your contacts, you're going to go really fast. That's the idea. Because if you look, I'm sure if you look on the site, well, what are we saying? Mm-hmm. We'll make sales teams 3 to 4 times faster at what they do.
Okay.
And we have customers that have told us that. It's like our sales team, my Monday calls that usually take me all day to make, I'm done by noon.
Okay. All right.
And it's like
so
when you think about how, them. Yeah. So when you think about that, how that impacts your team, it's great.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I did use an app that was something burn or something. It was an app that
just give you a phone number to like use if you're contacting somebody on Craigslist and you want to make
if you're doing if you're signing up for an online account, because it was back when I was trying. Okay, how much can I still be connected to these have accounts online? But I don't really want too much. I don't want to get sucked in. I don't want people contacting me. I don't want to get put on lists. Which, when you donate to a political campaign, oh my gosh. You get put on the. I'm gonna swear. I'm gonna try not to swear. You get put on the worst list that haunts you for the rest of your life, both on email and phone. But luckily,
because I gotta think that politicians will sell those lists at a drop of a hat. $10 for your list. Okay, I'll take it.
I would never donate. I don't know if I remember seeing me tweet about Andrew Yang. I was big Andrew Yang guy.
The Yang Gang. He's an independent.
The Yang Gang. Yeah. So my wife and I, this was the first time we actually got politically kind of active in a sense. We saw him in Philadelphia, and we chatted. My wife chatted with him for a little bit.
All our viewers. All of our viewers have turned it off because you started talking politics, man.
Well, hey, or it could go the other way. It pulls people in.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Whether or not you hate it or love it. So I got, and it was like the first time I set up like the reoccurring donation. I think it was only like $50 a month or something like that. It wasn't much, but it was like something that like probably over the whole time, probably donated like maybe $400, $500, something like that at the time before the end of before he backed out of the campaign and stopped it. And then luckily the system he's using stopped the payments too. Cause I was worried about that once he got out of the race.
Nice.
I'm still paying somebody. I'm like, oh my gosh. But the downside about that is like, I felt good about donation. I didn't know after the fact that once the campaign ended or the election ended, I was still getting emails like crazy and occasionally like text messages. Well, I still get text messages. Now, I use Google Voice, which I highly, highly recommend. Never, your number that's associated with your phone, associated with your SIM card, never give to anybody. Have it routed through something. Because if you do, you get put on a list. Because luckily, Google Voice is pretty good because it's Google. You can block kind of text messages, spams, and numbers, and it's pretty easy interface. And I tried other companies that did kind of similar, and that's why I was trying out that PhoneBurner app. There's a bunch of them.
Not the PhoneBurner app, but
not yours.
The burner phone app of some kind. Yes.
Which their goal is like you pay like what $5 for some credits, and then for like a membership like monthly thing, or it's not that expensive. Whenever you want a new phone number, just click a button. They give you a new phone number, and then you could have that phone number redirect your phone. So that if I'm signing up for a new account, I could just give that burner phone number. And then if I ever don't want to use the account number, it doesn't matter. And I could always block the numbers too. So it's not I could block numbers coming in from that number if I wanted to. So like I said, but it's kind of interesting. You got me starting the whole, the political list thing, man. I'm still dealing with that. That's so disappointing. It's like, why do you have to do that? Because I thought I was trying to do something good, trying to be, from a societal standpoint and trying to get into being an active citizen. And then they burn you, man. They do. They especially if you give them your information. I don't know. So, I don't know. What else are we working on?
What else? All right. Yeah.
Well, are you still doing PHP?
Yeah. PhoneBurner.
Let's talk about
PhoneBurner's a PHP shop.
The real good thing is I want to talk about some coding, some text. That's where I want to get in with you. That's what the whole objective. I wanted to ask you to do something because I thought it'd be kind of fun.
Yeah.
So you're still doing your big PHP guy? Still doing PHP?
Yeah. They brought me in for. They brought me into. So they have an outbound product, obviously, right? That's what we do. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to build an inbound component to that. So make that part of their system better.
So are you just working on their APIs?
No. I'm building the the inbound components that we're working on releasing, things like that, plus a bunch of other stuff. So I don't just work.
When you say inbound, okay, let me back up.
So primarily we're calling people.
So the programs you're writing are going to be sending the outbound calls out, like so when they want to trigger out.
They already have that, right? So
okay.
And I've been there for 4 years now, 3 years, I don't know, years. I think we're going on 3 years. So what they want to do is we already make calls to people, but we want to strengthen the product when somebody calls people back. So instead of just routing, say, to their phone number, we handle it more intelligently. We do better things with it. So that is the side of the application that I primarily focus on, but I do a bunch of other stuff. So it's a PHP application that's been around since PHP 4.
So how do you was you deal with a lot of like legacy?
There's a lot of legacy stuff, but what's great is the team is great, and we've been able to update different parts of it. So we're running on modern versions of PHP. We're introducing better practices. We're able to slowly migrate from some legacy stuff to more modern design patterns in some cases. Always increasing the test surface, the amount of code that we're testing. So it's been really great.
Are you using internal frameworks or using anything? Like
so they had their own internal framework. We have been bringing in component libraries as needed and leveraging them as much as possible. But it's not like oh, we're going to build this on Laminas or Laravel or Symfony or any of those frameworks. What I'm interested, you say you like React. Our front end side of the dev team really uses Vue. We had done a little bit in React when we did some like Chrome extension programming, and I was. Just from an architecture standpoint, I was a big fan of React because of what I understand of React Native. But Vue really seemed to have the mind share in terms of front-end web. So for the most part, when we're doing front-end stuff now, we're doing it in Vue.
It's interesting. If I had what got me into, I think it was React Native that got me into React. Yeah, because I was looking for my mobile development class I teach on a campus where, I try to balance it between iOS and Android, which is always a difficult thing. The course started off as an iOS specific course, and that was fun. Working Xcode and started with Objective-C, then went to Swift, and and by the end of the course, pretty much I felt the students could at least build something simple within that interface. But the problem I always dealt with that course that I had like half the students or more than half had Android phones. So I kind of felt like I was forcing them into this iOS specific space. And even though I think they were learning good general concepts and patterns to build mobile applications and to kind of just learn the process, but I just felt like they couldn't really get the experience of testing on their phone. They couldn't really see what they were building. They could just use the iOS simulator. But also too, most of them didn't have a Mac. One thing when you build iOS applications, you're stuck on Xcode, stuck or on the Mac. You have to use that platform. So, and most people or most students are using Windows. So I was always looking for ways. I've tried PhoneGap. Remember PhoneGap?
Oh, I remember PhoneGap. Yeah,
that was clunky as.
PhoneGap was
being a web guy.
But didn't PhoneGap get better?
I don't know because I left it. It annoyed me.
I thought PhoneGap.
It might have did because I think who purchased? Did Adobe purchase it? I think somebody purchased it and then put some money behind it. So I think it did
something
did
new
improve
now,
it.
isn't it? Isn't that the Cortana? Didn't that become like the Mono Projects mobile thing?
You're talking about Mono from Microsoft?
Yeah, with Cordova. Wasn't that PhoneGap?
I don't know.
Cordova, that's Apache Cordova. I'm looking now. Apache Cordova. I don't know.
Just like the genie burned me, PhoneGap burned me a little bit. Because I did some contract work with PhoneGap, and like I had one project that was okay, just doing a component piece of it, just doing like a simple kind of template app that they wanted to build on top of. That was fine. Then I started to get into like just other applications or contract work, and just doing that with PhoneGap, it was just a painful experience. And I don't know, even though as a web guy, I got drawn to it because of the cross-platform ability to, you build your app. It basically is HTML, JavaScript. It's running inside of a web view, but it puts a wrapper around it so you could deploy it and release on the app stores. But it's still just a web view, and it's still just JavaScript. There's always going to be performance limitations with it. It may have gotten better because the web view and performance and, phones got faster. So, and also the feature set you could probably access to the libraries to access the native features have probably definitely gotten better. But at the time, I think I was using it maybe in a little bit of an earlier stage. And so it was just very rough to use. But the idea of having a platform that you could develop on for both Android and iOS, that was a dream. That's why I wanted to use that in my class. So I taught it for 2 semesters. It worked well for, in a sense, because in that students could at least test it out on their phones, but it was still challenging. It was still, the tooling for just a first year, second year student to learn, because you're using a lot of the command lines. Mostly there isn't really any good user interfaces. It's same thing with React Native, but it's very challenging for somebody to learn. There's you have to do a lot of groundwork to get to that point. And I always kind of hit performance issues. So
now have you been doing a lot with React Native?
From both personal projects. I haven't released anything yet on the App Store. I have a couple personal projects that I'm kind of getting closer to, just some basic utility applications of like a budget tracking application, for myself, and just like different little things like that. I have taught it I kind of switched away from it at college, but I did teach it for about 2 semesters, and it was a great experience, especially with Expo, which Expo is like a set of React Native libraries on top of it, but it has like an app for both iOS and Android that basically, if you build your Expo app, which is basically just a React Native app with some additional libraries on top of it, that it makes the testing process as seamless as possible. So for day one, I could have the students build like a Hello World application, and whether or not they're using Android or iOS, they could then just be able to install the Expo app and then be able to scan the QR code. Boom, they got it right on their phone. Right. So from that experience of getting something so they could actually see and test and to see the response of,
I remember seeing that.
That's good. Yeah.
I remember seeing that. Now has React Native's gotten a lot better in terms of not being a web view, right? Like in terms of compiling down.
It provides that compiled, that bridge in a sense where it'll interface with the native components, so that when you compile your app, you're still writing JavaScript, you're writing, using the React framework, but then when you do, let's say, a view tag or a label tag, it's then using those tags to then reference native components.
So your app's not running in a web view anymore. It's actual. It's just behind the scenes. There's some, I'm guessing, Kotlin or Swift or whatever code that is interpreting JavaScript.
That's correct. Well, that's the compiling.
Or is it's actually compiled down into the native?
It's compiled. Well, we'll put it this way. I think it's a mix of both. And I don't know a lot about the internals of that, so I don't know how much I could speak to it. But when you compile it down, it is compiling into, let's say, an Android Studio project or an Xcode project, which then you could actually open up and view the actual code. If you wanted to go and then do some native work where you have to go and do edit the Objective-C code or to edit the Java code for Android, you could actually do that because it outputs out those projects. And then you use those compilers, those applications to then actually build the executable or the APK that they could test on the phone. But React provides also through the command line interfaces for that. So you don't really need to even touch for most of the time, especially if you use Expo and just use their kind of platform, their app. But if you just want to test on, let's say, Android or iOS phone, as long as you have a that device with you, you can just compile using command line. It'll use the Android Studio or the Xcode build libraries and just build the application through that. So it does have its performance issues too, because like I said, it does compile it down to native code, but it's still like a step where it still has to take your JavaScript and then compile it down to kind of native, or kind of translate it to native code that then gets compiled into bytecode that gets run on the phone. Right. So it's kind of it's an extra step there. It's an extra layer. There is going to be a little bit of performance hit, with it. Also the compiler too, of just through the command line, with React can be a little bit slow, especially if you get to be large.
But I wonder, how much of it is compiled down into the actual, how much is compiled down in the actual, underlying language? Because if it's all compiled down, then the only performance hit you have is the fact that the transpiling may not be efficient, but arguably it may be more efficient than a developer writing the code.
No, well, that's why, like I said, when you have it, you have your Xcode or Android project, which you could then go. It compiles it. Let's put it this way. It more of a, it compiles it, but it doesn't. I'm not using the right terminology. It basically translates it
transpiles
transpiles, that's better, into that language that then if you wanted to, you could then go and edit.
Okay, so it should be fully there. So you shouldn't have a performance hit other than the fact that
but you're relying on the React libraries to do that translation. So depending on how good or how smooth that translation is,
it may not be as efficient as you writing the code because it's that transpiled code. But like I said, arguably it may transpile some things better than we would do
eventually.
If we're just writing it, because it may account for specific issues that performance issues, or I'm going to do this weirdly, which would read weird.
I agree. Like once AI can, if there was like a React AI, which like every time there's like a new Android release or a new iOS release, and if that AI could analyze the release and then write the React code to make that connection perfect, so that it could transpile the JavaScript into the new updates and the new libraries that Apple or Google's releasing, then that could be good. I don't think you're gonna get there till you have a computer do it, but because now you're dependent upon React developers who specialize in doing that translation of like when there's a new release, they have to then update the React libraries to account for those native libraries.
We see, and then that reminds me of a similar, like for those in the Laravel world, JMax Laravel Shift does a similar thing. Laravel comes out with a new version, and it tries to automate changing your code to fit the new version as much as possible. Like all the things that, like, we deprecated that, use this instead, and it'll try to hold your hand and get your app up to date with the new version. I'm guessing in a similar way as to what you'd have to do with changing a React Native app. So
React Native got, just because of the accessibility of it, that got me into React. And what kind of keeps me on React, because then then I'm like, let me start building some web applications React. Let me actually start doing that. And it's really just the component model that React uses, even though it has its pros and cons, and you can, especially if you get into component hell and kind of, the hierarchy of it all. But just programming the React components, for me as a developer, it just feels good. Now, if I was starting from fresh, if I had no React Native or no React experience at all, I've taken a look at Vue. Vue would probably be, would probably be my next route to go, because I think I like the brevity of the framework. I think it has a good, if I need to, there's a shorter time to actually get to when I'm building an application, just a little bit of taking a look at Vue, the amount of code I have to write to get some good results.
Boilerplate?
Yeah, just more. I think it's just just the way the libraries, how you can access the libraries. Like when I was doing an Angular app back in the past, and that was a way long time in the past, and I've really no experience with it recently. It just felt like, it was a little bit more of a laborious to kind of get something working, get an application working, get through all the pieces I need to tie together for that. So, but I don't know. That's just, and also the way you program it's just a different experience.
Gotcha. But one thing I said the politics would drive people away. We lost like all our viewers talking about React Native.
We lost all of these 0 viewers.
No, we had like 1 or 2 and then they're gone. No, but I have a coworker who's listening on Twitter, since we're doing this on Twitter Spaces, which I doubt we'll ever do again. So
I still don't even know where this is. We're broadcasting this on Twitter Spaces. So I have no idea what this is. So, but he can even see this.
He just made the point that the stack traces are impossible with React Native, which I can understand, right? Because if it's transpiling and you have an error, you're like, I have no idea what's going on here.
Yeah.
So no, but Twitter Spaces, I think, like if you would go onto Twitter, you would see my space, you could join it, and then you could request access to talk to us, and we could all hang out there. And if you had Twitter on your phone, we could have done this all there, and you could have been talking on your phone, and we could be like doing it on Twitter Spaces. But I don't know. It was that, and there was a. Jack said it says you invited him. I didn't mean to. I wonder how many people Twitter told them I invited them. I just tweeted the thing. But
well, I thought it would be cool, like if we did this as, like I said, we just were like, okay, let's do this as a video, just try, because I always thought it'd be kind of cool, like we could stream it to YouTube and Twitch, and just have it kind of live, and then get that audience feedback eventually, if we can get 1 or 2 or 3.
Well, we've got a couple.
Put some chat messages in there.
Been a couple comments. Somebody on Facebook said nobody knows what Tim does, so
So they could yell at me when saying you have no idea how React works.
Right.
And I could say,
here's the truth. If I knew where these things were, maybe I could tell you if people were saying that. But I have.
And then we could have the long tail approach with the podcast and be able to kind of have that.
Oh, so this is the live engagement, and then we keep the podcast around because people are going to totally want to go back and hear our thoughts on React.
So we go live to tape, balls to the wall. Don't really know what we're saying.
Yeah,
no editing, no editing at all. Right.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And then just keep it raw.
Editing is the worst.
Yeah.
You can. This is why we did LVTech Radio live, because I wasn't going to record stuff and then be like, oh, can we do this part again? And then have to slide. No, I'm not doing that. So do it live to tape and you're good.
Yeah. Even when I do, you see, that's one thing. Like
I say live to tape. Does anybody even know what that means anymore? No one knows.
See, and that's the one thing, like with to do good content too on YouTube. Yeah, it's weird. It's like, it's a mix. Either you're going to be super real, right? Which that's what you and I are, super raw, right? No filters and like kind of just say what we're going to say. We won't say, I don't think either of us would say anything we would have to get banned for, anything like that. But just to be,
like we've been on the internet long enough to know that you never put anything on the internet that you don't want everybody to know, whether it's live like this or whether it's in your Google Docs, guys. You don't.
So you either do that, and there's an audience there. I do believe that, because it's real. You want to listen to real people, and and disagree and yell at them through your computer screen, and if you're listening to on your phone. But to do good content, let's say YouTube, you do also have to produce it, right? So that's the one thing. Like most of my content on YouTube is really, it's all unlisted and hidden content. It's for my courses. Okay. Because when I'm doing my lecture videos, I do just like this, where like I'll plan out the lesson, like have like the code. I'll do that beforehand. But when I'm actually walking through the steps, I'm just going to kind of just do it off the top of my head while I'm kind of walking through the design or the code that I'm kind of trying to illustrate. And then I just upload up to YouTube. Right. I just do it immediately. I don't do any editing, because I did find that once I would start doing editing, it's a drag. Oh, kind of like it takes the joy out of it. Yeah. And it makes you not even want to produce the content then.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you see people on YouTube that it's like a full-time job when they're showing you like, oh, this is I'm going to do whatever this project is. Right. Well, it's twice the project to produce it, because, they get different camera angles, and it's all possible. I mean, what technology, running this versus what we did at LVTech Radio, doing this with a 2-camera live stream is so much simpler than anything we did at LVTech Radio just 5-6 years ago, right?
You had a pretty nice setup.
Because
nice setup though.
Yeah, what technology? Well, at the time, but like what technology has brought us, it's so much easier. There's equipment out now that makes all that we tried to do, streaming and on the digital media side of things, so much easier. But yeah, exactly. It's like to produce good content. That's its own separate task, along with whatever you're trying to produce the content about.
Yeah. Yeah, I find when I'm doing videos, the most amount of prep or organization I do is like with my OBS scenes. Like if I can organize my OBS scenes in ways to switch between them for different setups, like on the fly, or even when I'm doing a class, when I do my synchronous online classes during the week, like I'll run it through OBS and I'll be able to switch between different camera views or different scenes through that. And then it kind of allows me to it's not just seeing just me, or not just to see my desktop without me. I can kind of almost do different shots and then edit on the fly.
Yeah. Because I mean, there's a conference next week that's virtual, and instead of doing an actual talk live, like a live stream like this, they wanted the content recorded. Mm-hmm. But that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the same thing I would do live, but instead of it being live, I'm just going to hit the record button, because I'm not going to try to slice the things together, right? And I'm not using OBS. I'm using A10 Mini, but it's the same deal. Like get it set up with a couple different buttons so it can have full screen me in a corner with the green screen, the presentation screen behind me. There's a couple of talks I do that are live code, so I just have to be able to switch between presentation, which shows you the information, then switch to another screen, to another monitor that has my IDE, and but yeah, because I'm not gonna. I mean, I know how to use a nonlinear video editor. I've done that in the past many times, but it's not.
So have you since you've done a lot more conference speaking? I've done a lot of teaching in the classroom and some presentation in like a college setting. But since have you ever had a really bad experience, like a technical bad experience, where like either a demo you prepped or something that you were gonna just show or demonstrate and it just fell apart and you had to totally recover or try to? try to save your presentation? Or are you just like, you're so prepared,
that's a really
so clean,
good question.
And Linux saves you all every time because that's what you're running?
No, that's a really good question, because I mean, people who do a lot of speaking will tell you live demos are the worst, right?
Yeah.
But I love them. I don't like the canned ones, because I want to see stuff work, and I want to see the presenter show me that they know how to make it work. You know, there's more believability when someone's saying, I just ran this code, I just wrote this code, let's run it, let's evaluate it, whatever the thing is, right? Let's see the output. Then you're like, oh, I can see the parts moving, versus there's just I feel like it's a tie at an emotional level, as opposed to just like visually what I see on the screen. Because you could show me the same thing pre-recorded. I believe it more, or I'm more invested in it. I can't really explain what it is, but there's power to live demos. And some of the first talks I gave, that was the thing that stuck out. Like one of the first PHP talks I gave, it was at a small conference, and I was doing on API tooling, and it was all live stuff. And the thing that was odd to me was in the PHP community, right before I gave the talk, like a handful of people that are very well known in the PHP community walk into the back of the talk.
Yeah.
And it was exactly that advice that they gave me afterwards. It's like, yo, you shouldn't have done the live demos. They went well, but you shouldn't have done them because there's so much danger there. But I feel
you're like, no, I like to do that. Well, I like to live dangerously.
I didn't say that, but I feel like the fact that they were live actually made the impact greater, even on those that were accomplished speakers in the community already. I feel like, you know, even though they were like, that's a little dangerous, I feel like I say, it's this emotional level between the speaker and the audience. They're kind of vested in you. It's a live performance, right? Yeah. So I'll say that.
Well, because you're showing you're showing problem solving on the fly.
If something goes wrong.
Just like in real life, like if you're in a job and you need to, you're trying to make something work and you hit this kind of technical roadblock, well, it's on you to try to figure it out and fix it. Like when I'm teaching my students, that's one thing I try to encourage them to say, like, and I don't mind if I'm trying to show them something and it doesn't work. And honestly, like I told you, like I try to like set myself up for failures or make my job harder.
Right.
So psychologically, I think I do that sometimes where like I go into a classroom with just a general, like, you know, even though it's a demo, I've probably done multiple semesters, but I'll go in just thinking like, okay, maybe I'll do it a little bit different or in a different way, just to, you know, like I said, entertain myself in a way, but then it doesn't work. And then I have to rework it on the fly and figure it out. But I say, I have no problem showing them that, even though the only time it gets bad is if it takes too long to fix and then I lose class time. But if it takes like an extra, let's say 5 or 10 minutes, and I can walk them through my process, even if it's just like Googling and show them, okay, this is how I'm looking at this error. I'm looking at the specific part of the error. I don't know what that means, but I know that part is really important. I will Google that. I'll go to Stack Overflow.
Right.
Or some other site.
Just being able to look at an error message and reduce it to what's actionable.
Unknown blog, which often happens, that I'll find like a little bit of code and I teach my students, if you can problem solve like that, especially if you're a web designer, web developer, and you have to work through like a lot of JavaScript and you're going to be faced with problems you have no idea how to fix, but somebody else has fixed it.
Yeah, definitely.
You just need to, you know, if you can build the skill of finding like how can you get to that solution the fastest way to kind of almost be your own problem solver, that's such a great skill to have.
Yeah.
Which I think when you're young, it's kind of hard to kind of really get your mind there, because you're thinking, oh, the computer should just kind of help me fix it. A lot of students just expect that.
It does not.
So,
no. But the one time though, it's actually, I was speaking at the first conference that Twilio ever ran, and I was doing some live demos on that, and obviously Twilio telecommunications API, right? So it's important for them when a live call or something happens to be able to reach the code you're working on, which was on my laptop, right? And I mean, I had it set up that I should have been able to get there through a reverse SSH tunnel anymore if you use ngrok. That's basically what it was, but this was before ngrok was around. And my setup on that failed. I didn't realize why, and I couldn't recover it, so we just couldn't do the demos. So that's probably the worst that has ever happened to me.
Did you have like a backup at all? Did you?
Well, we just didn't. It was one of those things.
Just go to some Google Slides and talk about those.
The whole thing wasn't live code, right? So this was a kind of a demo of something I had explained. So it didn't work. Okay, you saw the code. Sorry, I made the phone call. It didn't work. So it wasn't bad that it failed there. I will say though, on the flip side, after talking about how much I think those live demos work, I do a talk on Docker, and I have a bunch of videos that are captured that are then embedded in the slides. And I actually move from video to video. So it makes it look, they're all running concurrently. And it is how it would work if I ran that on my local, but I'm not running it on my local, right? But it has this feel of I'm going from this terminal, I'm typing in this command, and I'm going to go over here, which is the live log that we're looking at, and we're going to see the logs, come in. So it has this, it feels live, because I can kind of move from what feels like a screen to a screen instead of here's just a full screen video that shows the different things happening. The way it's set up, it has that live feel. So I still think it kind of connects on that live level, even though it's not live. And I will say as a presenter, that's a whole lot easier to give that talk than having to make sure I have everything set up and everything's working. And the truth is, like, some of the best things you get are interactions with live. Like you're saying, when you have to troubleshoot something, or there was one time I was on the stage.
Somebody shouting from the audience saying, "You're doing it wrong."
Yeah.
Click that button.
There was a time when I was at the stage at Laracon, just doing like a 5-minute, hey, this is how Nexmo works, before the next presenter came on, and
you mistyped your reference variable.
No, but it was I had the log of all the SMS messages that were coming in. Yeah. And I had the number, and as soon as I do that, people start SMSing whatever they can to try to break it. So they're invested with the talk if they can interact. Which, I mean, that's a unique thing, because not all the times that you're doing a live code can people actually interact with your code, but in this case they could. That's also the reason why a lot of times when I'm doing a talk, I leave Twitter on, so when people tweet, it pops up as a notification, and then there's like that little positive feedback. Oh, if I tweet, my tweet's gonna pop up on the screen.
That's what Tim. That's what I was saying. Super chats. Some super chats.
Is that that's the thing you want me to do? So you can get
that's the YouTube
Bitcoin.
And you should also, if we really want to take this to the next level, like I said, if you
and after one half, not even, well, we're what are we? We're 52 minutes in. After one almost done podcast, I think we're ready to say yes. We need to next level this.
If we go to the podcast 2.0. And I'm thinking about this. It would actually be fun
for us
to
would
write,
be just the next podcast. This is 1, and that would be 2.
Well, it's the new let's say the new RSS kind of protocol, I guess, in a sense.
Oh, and we should talk about RSS in a second.
It's not just, I'm saying not just RSS, but like the protocol
for
doing
podcasts
for the but it provides like a whole other extra functionality, and they have this functionality that they recently implemented called Boostergrams, which allows people to send us messages, but also allows us to send people money. So people could send us money and messages at the same time.
Wasn't that the tip thing that I saw a video on or something? Like
so it's kind of
subscribe to it, so it sends a bit of a Bitcoin. Was it Satoshi?
Yeah, it's a little stat. A little Satoshi stat
for like every minute you listen or something like that.
Well, that's for like a stream. Yeah, they have like a streaming stats where like if you get credit for people streaming your show.
Okay,
I'm not sure how it works technically, but just the idea behind it sounds super, super fascinating. But it's also what they're trying to do is they're trying to give sort of like that engagement that YouTube has. So they've already built it into with the commenting system between different podcast 2.0 apps, where if you listen to an episode, you can comment on it, but that comment then it gets distributed, kind of on the chain, sort of on the blockchain to the other applications. So it gives it like a kind of a universal commenting system for, let's say, a show. So you have different podcast applications. People are commenting from different platforms, but it's all going back to the same chain in a sense. And then it gives a consistent kind of interface for that.
And so this is what we should talk about, because we've got 5 minutes left, and this is probably, for those who don't, Mark might not realize this because he was teaching, but Facebook was down for a considerable amount of time on
I did
Monday.
not know till you messaged me a DM on Twitter saying, "Oh, this would have been a good day to have it." And I was like, "What's going on?" I was offline. Yeah, I was totally I was teaching, I was prepping, I was on campus. I was not even and usually, like I said, I don't have apps on my phone, so I just have
no idea.
But I have to open up the browser to see what's happening in the world. So
I did actually do the calculation, but we talk about 9 nines as to how high a service stays online, how 99% point, how many nines afterwards. I didn't do the calculation, but I don't know if Facebook has any nines right now because it was down bad, and we don't have to.
It's
talk
not
about
just it's also with the WhatsApp and the Instagram. And
right. Basically, they just unplugged their DNS servers from the internet.
I feel like I was left out of this whole event. I didn't get the experience of going to the website, or like I said, if I had an app on my phone, open it up and see what happens.
I mean, the people at Facebook aren't going to find this funny, but I found it funny that I went to facebook.com just to see what was up.
Yeah.
And Google's like, you mistyped that domain name. It doesn't exist.
Oh, so it was just like a DNS error. That was a DNS.
Oh yeah, they literally disconnected their data centers from the internet. And I saw reports of people saying they couldn't even swipe their badges to get in because their electronic lock system wasn't connected to the internet. It's like
total fail. Well, we used to talk about this in the show. Like, yeah, if you ever want to bring, the DNS system in a sense is great. It's like, it's amazing. It's a miracle, but at the same time, it's fragile in a sense where, well, not fragile because it's distributed between different servers, but it's a fact of like,
it is really their DNS servers went down.
If you want to take down the internet, you focus on DNS. That's what it'll take.
Well, there was the knock-on effects of it were so many people hitting DNS and so many local caches, then being like, well, it doesn't exist, so let me fetch it. They were kind of DDoSing DNS servers because and we saw other systems under load because of how many everybody opened up their Facebook app. If they're running their Facebook app is saying, let's connect to the API. The API is saying, I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe you should check with the DNS server and make sure you have the right IP address. And so they basically DOS DNS servers for a little bit. But the thing there, people and this idea, because you see people talking about, oh, Facebook shouldn't control this much, and that we have so much of our content on there, and people can't message each other because people can't message each other because they use Facebook Messenger and all this. And a day like Monday shows how connected people are to these platforms. But so you're talking about RSS. RSS is amazing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. RSS is completely distributed. It's I should find it because let's see. I don't know if I can bring this up or not.
Distribution is the key to freedom, Tim.
Yeah. Well, and so okay. So the cryptocurrency would be like, the answer is blockchain. I'm not sure the answer is blockchain. My perspective is the answer is moving from platforms to protocols, because you know what didn't go down on Monday? Email didn't go down because email is just a way of sending things from you have and I know there's decentralized chat applications. I know the Mastodon people are going to be like, that's us, you're talking about us. But it's like that idea of stop trusting platforms so much with our communication because we have the technology there.
There's actually a blockchain DNS that I was looking into.
Of course, we're going to go. Yeah, it's a blockchain DNS.
Which, because the whole crypto, there's a token that powers it.
Right.
And I looked at it, and it's pretty fascinating. Even I looked at getting into it because going to the kind of, if you want to have, it's the blockchain, like for doing really unique domain names or domain extensions.
Okay.
And to have that running through, like I said, I should have refreshed my mind about this because I looked at it probably about a year ago, and it looked really, really interesting. Once again, it's kind of very early, so to do it, it's kind of, you have to jump through some hoops, but it's kind of fascinating that if we could just decentralize DNS, like, so it's not reliant
DNS
on.
Is decentralized. Like the issue here wasn't that it wasn't decentralized. But it's reliant. It was the issue that their DNS servers were gone.
But I'll put it this way: the DNS servers are controlled by somebody.
The globals are, but the globals still are distributed.
Well, yeah, they are, but they're still controlled.
But I'm not trying to solve. But that's the thing.
Controlled by governments.
I'm not trying to solve
corporations.
I'm not trying to solve the problem of Facebook going down. I don't care. Well, I feel like it was a great refreshing that there were people that were looking at their phones that now had to look up and see the person next to them. Right? There were people in a restaurant that were eating with somebody else instead of both taking pictures of their food and commenting on their own posts. They had to put their phone down and be like, "Oh, you're eating with me too? Who knew?" But I'm saying to solve this whole, we're so tied to platforms. Like what happens when Twitter bans my account? I'm like, well, then I can't talk to anybody. Well, why are we trusting platforms with so much of this when we have technology? Like you're saying, RSS. Do you want to distribute content? We have a way to do that where you can own the platform, you can own the server, you can publish it. It can be aggregated. It can be put on lists someplace. People can find it. They can be notified as soon as you have. Like, we have the technology in place, but it is so convenient, both for content creators and content consumers, to just be like, oh, let me just use this app, and then everybody, we coalesce around these big apps, and then now we get to this point where different governments are talking about the power that Facebook has and whether or not we should have to censor or just control what people are allowed to say on there. And hey, they can if they want to. It's a private company, but I feel like we're putting too much eggs in these baskets. Instead, the internet was about freedom. The internet was about, I can host my own video if I want to. I don't have to be like, what if YouTube demonetizes my video?
Well, you just have to pay for it though. Is there a good solution for video hosting that's cheap?
I don't know.
Because it's just that you still deal with that issue. Even think about just getting like an S3 bucket or using Google Cloud.
I think you could.
It's still going to be pricey. You're still paying the storage costs. Yeah, and it's kind of like that's the bet for me. That's what I do for teaching for my lecture videos. Even though I would just love to actually put them up in an S3 bucket and just give a link to it, and then or write my own like embed code to get the video player instead of relying on YouTube. But it's free in a sense where I just upload the video, it's there, and it's kind of, I don't have to worry about the cost of it. Even though,
would it cost that much though? I mean, how big are your videos?
Like about anywhere or up to a gig, around about a gig.
What does a gig cost on S3 anymore though?
I'd have to look. It's been a while, but because I think I did look at it when I was debating on where I was going to be doing some of my video hosting.
The issue for S3,
it just felt expensive because the amount of content over time, like each semester that I'm going to be uploading, it's just it's exponential.
Standard S3 typically costs from 0.021 cents per gigabyte stored. 0.021
it'll add up, but that's okay. Like I said,
but it's probably the access fees.
You said 0.012.
Yeah, it's probably the bandwidth cost because I don't remember what the bandwidth cost is.
Okay, that's right. Maybe that's the expensive part of it that I thought. Yeah, the bandwidth.
I don't remember. I'd have to look at the pricing calculator to see. But it still, what is this? That's standard. I'm looking at storage pricing. I want to look at. No, I don't see. Request and data retrieval, price per gigabyte. I mean, data retrieval per gigabyte looks like 0.03 cents.
Whether you're paying that, maybe the combination of the two, paying with the bandwidth and the storage.
Yeah, bandwidth storage. Who knows?
It just feels pricey. Yeah.
Well, especially because you're using YouTube for free, and I'm not looking at your use case, but I'm saying like people that are like, hey, YouTube demonetized my like. Or what happens when YouTube goes down, or what happens when Facebook goes down, or what happens when Twitter goes, all these things. We're relying on platforms too much when we have the technology. It's already like exactly this. I think you're talking about the podcast 2.0 movement, and a lot of that was started from saying, well, the only feed that most people use is the Apple, whatever their
Well, their podcast index that they use.
Yeah.
That because pretty much they, if you own the index, then you pretty much own that's a platform in itself. Where like you become reliant on like they had those source, so they're the list of all the podcasts if you want to know where the podcasts are.
But it's like really.
But there's interesting thing
RSS.
There's interesting thing that's going on for podcasters or podcast developers they're actually syncing the list now. So if you go to like podcastindex.org. That I think they have developers who are sourcing the list from Apple or a list from other places and then combining it together, using unique identifiers so that, you don't have to rely, like you said, on iTunes because they own, it's like a walled garden where like you rely on them for your podcast, not just would be the file hosting, but just the directory, the listing of that so people can find you.
Right. Yeah. And it's just, I think Monday just shows, do we really want to do that? And I honestly think the pendulum will swing back the other way. I think we've swung all the way to we are very platform centric, and people are coalescing around singular platforms, and even in the messaging space, right? Like oh, should you? I retweeted a tweet from I think it was Snowden. I forget who it was. It was like you should this shows that you should probably use a secure messaging app. It's easy as it takes 30 seconds to change. Yeah, kind of. Takes 30 seconds, and then convincing everybody who's on the messaging app you use to also change that messaging app. Why? Because, and that's where I come back to, we need to start, and I think the pendulum will swing this way. We need to start talking more about protocols than platforms, because it doesn't matter if I'm using the open source, secure, whatever chat messenger, if everybody else also has to use it.
Yeah.
You know, the point isn't that. The point is, and I know we've gone through the Jabber days and the XMPP and you know, those are the protocols. It's interpolarity between those, you know, so you own your own content. So you own your own ability to communicate, you know?
Let's start up a Lightning node. Let's do it.
I have no idea what that means. No idea. You just want the Bitcoin.
If we exactly, I want the Satoshis. I want to get some streams going on here. Get paid, which for Lehigh Light Tech you know, going back to what we started, we never got paid for it.
No, right? I mean, we never got paid for it. There's a nonprofit organization. I still do a terrible job of running it. Has money, but
I think there could be something interesting and also something kind of fun. But I also want to kind of say, can we actually monetize it some way?
So, well, there you go. We have like 4 people watching. Would you pay us money? Answer: probably not, folks. Probably not. But we're 5 minutes over.
Hey, remember, this is the first episode in a long journey, Tim.
This is it. People are gonna look back at this and gonna be like, "How were they ever successful?" Or people are gonna look back at this and be like, I see why they never made another one.
You should go on YouTube and look at the first Joe Rogan show. Have you ever done that before?
No, I haven't.
Just the production quality of it. It's brilliant. You should do it. Just because
you know, he's one camera pointing.
It's so bad. Yeah. It's and he has some weird like where there's no. It's very bad. And actually, it's super raw, like we talked about. Where like he has his friend just starting it, and they're saying, "Is it live? It's alive."
Oh, that's the best. I mean, are we online? Do we have people watching us?
He's like, doesn't know what the hell's going on. He's just figure out, are we actually doing this? So we'll have a version of that. I think that would be good. But anyway, I don't know what this is. You know, I think it would be kind of interesting. Like I said, Fridays works good for you. It works good for me because I teach between Monday to Thursday, and then Fridays I do some lecture videos if I need to clean up some content for the week. But other than that, though, I'm pretty free.
Yeah, we'll see. We used to do the Developer Friday podcast. But yeah.
We'll see. So, all right.
All right, well, then the topic for next time, should we continue to do this? What should we talk about?
Well, since we don't have any boostergrams telling and paying us money to say keep this going or not, I would say it deserves at least
I'm out.
One or two more tries to get it better.
Until the Bitcoin. Well, that's something we could talk about next time. Do you own any cryptocurrency? Don't answer that.
I do.
I just said don't answer.
Let's put it this way.
Don't tell me what you. Oh, what's this?
I won't get into it. But let's put it this way. I lost some money on the traditional markets, which made me a little bit jaded about the traditional markets. Made some money on the blockchain market, so that makes me a big supporter of that. So yeah.
There you go.
But I also like it I like it, you know, from a freedom standpoint, from, you know, like I think I tweeted this out this week. Like if we can separate money from governments and money from, corporations, but like just money from governments, because governments control the monetary system. Think about how free we could be. I don't think it'll ever happen because governments won't let it happen. But the crypto and, you know, even though the investment side of it, who knows where that's going to go. And I would never suggest somebody to go, you know, go put a lot of money. I don't have a ton of money into it. It's just, I'm just amazed about the little money I put into it, where it's gone. If I compared that to the money I've done in traditional markets, that's why I think it's just fun to watch. I just did it as like a sort of an entertainment thing to watch. But it's kind of crazy how some things can go with that. But just more from an informational standpoint and a freedom, just be like, you know, I don't think blockchain, like you said, blockchain is not a solution to everything, but it's actually in a sense, not really traditional. It's, you know, because it is just a database, right? It's basically just a list.
It's a really big database that's spread all over the world.
Transactions in a sense, right? But it's distributed. Right? We go back. It's distributed, and distribution, I think, is freedom. So, yeah. I know. What's that behind you though? Is that like a gun behind? I think I've asked you this. I think I'm having flashbacks. The previous another podcast. Is that like a sword?
That's a sword.
Or
that's a sword.
Sword or gun? Okay. I think I've asked you that in a previous podcast or something.
Well,
or Zoom meeting that we
did the Zoom thing for LV Tech that one time. All right, we can talk about my sword next time and why it's hanging up behind me. No, it's actually a gift. Not to me. That was a gift to my grandfather. So,
all right.
That might be interesting. That might be like. Anyway, the story behind that might be interesting for the tech side.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so maybe
I had some swords as a kid, some wooden ninja swords I could talk about.
There you go.
That my mom threw away. She was upset that I bought them. So.
So maybe we'll do this next Friday. We'll see if anybody likes it. See if anybody watches it. I don't know. I'll upload it someplace.
So you stream this to YouTube on your channel?
Yeah. It's on YouTube. It's on Twitter. It's on Facebook. All live. All
right. So I will go to your channel then, because I will be able to share it from your channel, right? I'll be able to go grab it there. Do we have it recorded? It's streamed there, but it gets recorded.
It is recorded there. I may have to make it public, and I'll just do that. I won't edit it. We'll just let the live thing go. Yeah. There'll be audio that we could upload someplace if we wanted to, but that seems like it'd take effort. So I'm not sure that's gonna happen.
Would say let's do like the first, because you're doing, we could always, are you recording this locally? I'm assuming you
are. No, actually, it's being recorded.
You're not recording the audio locally?
I could do that, but I'm not.
Well, I guess we could always download the video and just strip the audio. If you ever want to ever release, because I think it'd be kind of interesting, just try it out for a few weeks, rest of the video. And if you want to,
well, I can get the audio. I have no problem getting the audio too. I can pull that out. I have from whatever source it's in, and I should have recorded it. I have the capability of doing that. I just didn't.
Just in case if you want to. Well, like I said, we can rip the video. We can rip the audio from the video if you ever want to put this as a real podcast. But I don't know. Like I said, but also it gives me something to listen to, because like you said in the beginning, we're like,
oh yeah, you only listen to the podcast you're on.
I only listen to the podcast I'm on, so I only like to listen to myself.
So we'll have to realize that when we see how many plays we have over a week, pretty much 10 or 20 of them are Mark just listening to himself. All right. So with that, we will see you. I say you, whoever's watching this. Maybe we'll be back next week. Until then,
maybe not.
Have fun and do tech stuff or something.
But one thing that'll definitely be consistent. You're going to come back and see his nice velvety beard. That'll still be there probably.
No one's ever described my beard as velvety.
And if everyone's listening to this with just the audio, you have to watch the videos.
That's right.
The full HD.
Well, you can't even get the full HD. It's out of camera. It doesn't matter how.
Look how long that is.
Can't get high enough to get out of camera.
How long is that?
You know what? That is something that we can talk about next week.